It's a beautiful day for another episode of the Free Roam podcast. How are you doing, Mr.
Yeah.
Joe Raptor?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a long day, but I'm excited to talk about some cool games with you. I've actually been going to the gym quite often as well these last 2 months actually. Kind of getting in the groove of it, and it's nice. I go there at 11 a.m. and then I come back at 12, and then yeah, I'm like extra amped up to make some content. So it's been
Oh, nice.
working well. I got like a coach as well, like a personal trainer. So that's also nice to have like an appointment. So you really have to go.
Yeah.
It's been great.
For
It's been
me, it's
great.
always been accountability stuff. If I'm training with somebody, I'm super on it. But the moment
Yeah.
it's just on me, I'm like, tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know? So
It's
I totally get that.
raining. It's like yeah, there are like a lot of things you
Yeah,
could
oh,
say.
it's
Yeah.
like a 2-minute drive. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I know what that's like. Well, that's good. Good to hear it. That's good
Yeah,
for you.
yeah. It's been great. It's been great. How are you?
I'm we're packing for a trip. We are going on like a vacation. We've had booked for like better part of 2.5 years. We were going to go on this trip last year, and then we found out that Nikki was pregnant with Orion, and so it didn't make sense to go to Universal Studios, which has like roller coasters and stuff, because you can't do roller coasters when you're pregnant. So we decided to postpone the trip till after the baby, which is now. And so we're going to go on a little vacation to Universal Studios, going to hang out, go on the Hagrid motorbike adventure, the Velocicoaster, ride the Mummy ride, all that stuff. It's going to be a good time.
Nice.
So we're going to do that. And then we're going to go to Tampa and do a bunch of deep sea fishing, offshore fishing and stuff. They had the option to go shark fishing. I didn't know you could just go fish for sharks, but apparently that's a thing.
That's
but
cool.
we're not going to do that. We're just going to do deep sea fishing, go for like the big monstrous ones. I mean, some of the fish in the Gulf of Mexico are scary, dude. They're like freaking 4 feet long, weigh 180 pounds. Like, it's horrifying. But anyway, so we're doing that. So we're trying to get content lined up. We're going to be leaving early, like 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. So it's going to be a little hectic, but
when were you gone? Or back? I mean?
we get back the 8th of October, and then we close on our house the next day, assuming everything goes well. And then we start moving, so the whole studio and everything will shift over there. It's going to be a pretty crazy couple of weeks. We're going to get some rest, and then it's going to be chaos for all the rest of October. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I mean, it's nice to have it over with then and for the end of the year, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. It's just, it needed to happen. We had timeline stuff just occur where we had to rush it. So here we are. I don't know how I'm going to juggle like freaking Spider-Man for review and Alan Wake 2 and everything while we're moving. Like, I have no idea, but we're going to try to figure it out. I don't know. What can you do? Anyway, how is everybody here joining us live?
For Skill Up, it worked out to have like the editor narrated. So maybe.
Oh yeah.
You can like, do it like that.
We could try something like that. I have no idea. It's gonna be pure chaos. Pure chaos, but we're gonna figure it out. We got Molly, Samaya, Bedtime, Irox, Ert, Tweb, Biscuit TV, Jacob, everybody in here. Thank you for coming live to the show. It's wonderful to see you, as always.
Hey everyone, good to see you. No sleep for Luke tonight. Tonight, the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to do some nice relaxing stuff. I will be reviewing Mirage while away. So just chilling in a hotel room, and I'm gonna be bringing like a gaming laptop, cameras, capture cards, and stuff. People are like, "Why are you working on vacation?" I've always said like this is like fun. This is a weird job where I actually enjoy what I'm doing. So like I get to play Mirage on vacation. That's awesome. Like let's do that. So it's going to be a good time. But as for everything else, I mean, we had a couple of little tidbits of news actually drop in the last like 12 hours basically. So we're going to address that. We're going to talk about something I meant to talk about last week that I just totally spaced. Couple other
As Cyberpunk, we also didn't talk about that. It was like a weird moment when I like at one point last week I was like, did we talk about Cyberpunk? Did we talk about the Phil email? Because there were like two topics that we discussed in the intro and kind of teased, and then never got
back
because
to
we was So
we just like talking, and we talk about 3 things, and then an hour and a half has passed, and we're like, oh crap. So
Yep.
We'll try to be more focused today. We have our list of topics, and we're gonna get through them. And
Will it work out?
We're gonna make it. I'm gonna highlight each one in our Google Doc as we get through it, so we can be like, we did that.
Smart. Okay. Yeah, that's smart.
So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. First things first, let's talk about one of the things we didn't address last week that I teased and implied we would be talking about, because I'm very, very professional. For those of you listening, last week I mentioned how in some of those Phil Spencer email leaks, we got an email where he described some frustrations with how the market works, how the industry is going. And one of the most interesting things I saw was his explanation for basically how third-party developers failed to evolve and adjust to digital storefronts. And as a result, we've seen games like Saints Row 2022 come out, which are just big, bloated AAA $200 million disasters, because they have to rely on those big whales to cash flow their entire company, whereas they should have adjusted and adapted. So just to give a couple of little highlights here, this is from Phil Spencer, over the past 5 to 7 years, the AAA publishers have tried to use production scale as their new moat, because they don't have the physical game sales or game market anymore. It used to be that basically only a few big publishers could afford to put games globally on store shelves. And now you just put your game on the PlayStation Store, you put it on Steam. It's actually comparatively not that difficult to release your game worldwide. And that puts these publishers in a weird spot where their special thing that they used to be the only guys that could do this, now they're not that special. So they've tried to use production scale as their new moat, their new specialty, basically. Very few companies can afford to spend the $200 million in Activision or a Take-Two spend to put a title like Call of Duty or Red Dead Redemption on the shelf. These AAA publishers have mostly used this production scale to keep their top franchises in the top-selling games each year. The issue these publishers have run into is these same production scale cost approach hurts their ability to create new IP, because of course you're not going to spend $200 million on something that's a big question mark. It just doesn't make sense to do that. And the hurdle rate on new IP at these high production levels have led to risk aversion by big publishers on new IP. You've seen a rise of AAA publishers using rented IP to try to offset the risk, such as Star Wars with EA, Spider-Man with Sony, Avatar with Ubisoft, etc. And this same dynamic has obviously played out in Hollywood as well, with Netflix creating more new IP than any of the movie studios. All of this is related to like streaming, to digital storefronts, and big shifts that occurred towards the end of the 2000s into the early 2010s. It's all connected, which is, it's cool to see it described by this guy at the very top of a massive company.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and maybe also because I think they a little later on he also notes that is why like there are not a lot of people that look at or that know the publisher behind the game. And for example, with Disney, okay, Disney is making this movie. It's Pixar. It's like a big name. So even if they drop a new IP, even though Pixar is not the best example because I don't think their new IPs have been like really popular, the last few ones they put out. But still, there is an incentive for people to go to the movies, even though it's a new IP, because it's Pixar. And there are just a few names in gaming that have that sort of thing as well. But for the mainstream, even less, I would argue. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's maybe also why we now see a Ubisoft original. So they're trying their best to have that, which doesn't always work out well for them. But PlayStation Studios, of course, another thing. that Sony hopes that people will be like, okay, this is a PlayStation Studios games, that means a certain quality. Um, but yeah, it's very interesting, and it's, I think Forspoken and Final Fantasy 16 are a great example. Like, these games cost the same amount for the consumer, but the quality is way less because they did not spend as much money on a Forspoken as on a Final Fantasy 16. While again, they retail for the same price, and then yeah, it's very hard to say, yeah, you have to play Forspoken over a Final Fantasy 16 because the quality is completely different.
Yeah.
And that makes it impossible for them to make something like Forspoken a thing, because they will never put the same investment in it as they do in their other AAA franchises. So it's kind of a hard situation where we're in, actually.
Yeah.
And it's yeah.
Well, it's eerily reminiscent of something that is commonly referred to as the Great Gaming Crash. And for people not familiar with this, I mean, obviously games go back to like the late 70s, early 80s. But one thing that happened in the early 80s was that there was a flood of video games coming out to things like, the Atari 2600 and various console systems at the time. And this flood of games was just overwhelming. There were a handful of good games, and there were a lot of terrible games, but they all cost the same. And when you adjust for inflation, these games cost like $100 in today's money. I mean, these were extremely expensive games for like that ET game that everybody talks about all the time. And as a result, what happened was that there was a large-scale recession in the video game industry that basically led to people just not buying games anymore because they didn't know what the quality level was going to be. They couldn't reliably go purchase a game. And bear in mind, this is before the internet, so it's not like you could just hop on, oh, what's the Metacritic score for this game? What's this reviewer on YouTube saying? You just didn't know. And as a result, people just stopped buying it because there was no clear differentiation between a full price game that's amazing and a full price game that is absolute garbage. And we're in a similar spot now where we have these $70 games that are amazing and stunning and just ridiculous amounts of content and shocking. And then there's $70 games that are like, okay, or pretty good, but not anywhere near that level. So what happens is the average consumer says, I'll get it on a sale eventually, whatever. I'll get to it. And then that game basically doesn't sell any units. It's a big flop when it launches, and then you see massive layoffs. Like we just saw that with Ascendant Studio, with Immortals of Avium, where they laid off half their studio because everybody looked at the game and said, it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look very good or great, so I'm going to wait for a sale. And waiting for a sale, even if you eventually intend on buying it, waiting for a sale still means no money flows to that studio. And when they've got bills to pay, that means half the studio gets laid off. And it's just unfortunate. But this is what happens when you have unreliable quality, or when expectations are set so highly for value with certain AAA or quadruple A games. It makes it really hard for other games coming in pricing themselves at similar rates to be competitive at all.
Yeah. And even from the same company, like that's the interesting thing, that they're kind of killing themselves by making these super high quality games, by setting the bar. And of course they have to follow that because everyone is doing it. But it is so weird that, for example, GTA 6 will probably cost $70 and Immortals was the same price. Like, that's just such a weird thing to comprehend. But that's where we are at. So I do think we have to find a new way for these new IPs to kind of shine, and then maybe they can survive at a lower price. And then when a lot of people are like, whoa, this was actually really good, they can invest more with a sequel. Maybe that's the way to go. And what I found interesting, actually, if we look back at the Xbox show from Summer Game Fest, one of the surprising things there was that there were a lot of new IPs, and that is because of Game Pass, because they have a way different way to for a game to be successful. It just has to have a lot of players. And obviously, when things are on Game Pass, more people will try it out. And actually, new IPs might like surprise people on Game Pass, or might actually bring people towards the service. And like, if they don't sell 2 million, but still, make sure that people stay subscribed, that's for Microsoft already enough, so they can invest more, with these really cool games that we saw during their show. So that might actually, I mean, that's what Phil was saying here as well. Like that Netflix is creating more new IP because they have a completely different business model. So in that sense, Game Pass might actually be kind of good for creativity, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. No, and I mean, he goes on to just explain the kind of after effect of this, which is in the new world where AAA publishers don't have real distribution leverage with consumers, they don't have production efficiencies, and their IP hit rate is not disproportionately higher than the industry average. We see that the top franchises today were mostly not created by AAA publishers. Games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Candy Crush, Clash Royale, Dota 2, etc. were all created by independent studios with full access to distribution. Overall, this IMO, this is Phil Spencer talking, is a good thing for the industry, but does not, but does put AAA publishers in a precarious position moving forward. AAA publishers are milking their top franchises, but struggling to refill their portfolio of hit franchises. Most AAA publishers are riding the success of franchises created 10 plus years ago. And we've seen this time and time and time again.
This email came out, and then a few days later, we had the Division news, right? Where Ubisoft is like, we're making Division 3, we're doing the mobile game. We, of course, knew about that already. The free-to-play game is coming. But basically, we're doubling down on the Division again. And that is so interesting. Like the last generation, Ubisoft had Watch Dogs for the first time. Ubisoft had the Division. And now they're banking on that. Obviously, Assassin's Creed was a previous generation. Far Cry was even like before that. But if you look at Ubisoft and what they're going to bank on, it is all these franchises that they did try once. But what have they created in terms of new IP in the last... this generation, or like in the last 5 years? I don't think anything of consequence. So you really see that with these publishers, and obviously 2K as well. They haven't had like a big success. Borderlands was their biggest non-sports game success in the recent years, and that's also an old franchise. So these companies are really struggling. And also, if you look at the games that have been super successful this year, Jedi Survivor, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4, like these were all of high quality, because they also had a bigger budget, but they were all known franchises.
Yeah.
So,
and
I think like, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's a reflection of the market too. Like, it's not like studios and publishers haven't tried to come out with new stuff. They have, but like we see Immortals of Avium that comes out and is okay. It's even good or pretty good, but not great or anything. The
Atlas
gaming,
Fallen.
Atlas Fallen, a lot of these games people just weren't interested in, and it's because that expectation of price to quality is higher. People say, oh, if it's on Game Pass, I'll try it. But for a lot of these publishers, they can't make their money if that's how they do it. They can't do that. They have to sell the copies needed, and as a result, they also double in. They're like, okay, well, if we were going to sell a quarter of what we initially thought, we need to make up that difference in revenue with live service elements. So cram your game full of live service stuff. And then gamers respond negatively to that. And then that causes it to crash even more and flop even harder. So it's just one of these things where time and time again, these publishers are going to keep getting screwed. And I think you're going to see more studio closures. Embracer Group just announced another round of layoffs, and it's just going to keep happening until the market kind of adjusts. But the good thing is,
I do think that's kind of their own unique situation, though, with them, of course, buying everything. Like, it was bound to happen, but it's like still showing that it's like a hard market for sure.
Yeah, it kind of, my understanding is basically they bought everything with the understanding they were going to get this $2 billion cash influx from Saudi Arabia. And then they had a handful of flops and Saudi Arabia backed out. And then they were like, wait, we can't pay for this. It's like buying everything in the store on a credit card. And then you're like, yeah, I'll buy everything on this credit card because I'm about to get like hired as a millionaire or something. I don't know. Like, I'm about to get this huge job, and then you don't get the job and you're like, oh, well, shit. You're just screwed. You're like, what do I do?
Even Saudi Arabia did not want Saints Row 2. They did not want to.
Even though they're like, we're our own breed, but we're already good on that. Speaking about being good on stuff, I think a lot of gamers are kind of fed up with the established Far Cry formula and have been for a good number of years.
Yeah.
The games
Far
play
Cry
very
6
similarly.
was one too much in that formula. They had to change more with Far Cry 6 already, I think.
I think mechanistically, Far Cry 6 did a lot of things better than its predecessors, but it was the same game that we had seen over and over again. So even though Giancarlo Esposito was amazing, it just wasn't quite
I love the main character as well. Like, but one of the biggest feature, it kind of felt like a Mirage thing, where one of the biggest features were bringing back features that people loved from the previous games that they ripped out with Far Cry 5 and New Dawn.
Yeah.
Like the narration for your main character and stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because it's also like it's the same thing with Assassin's Creed Mirage, where like the big exciting news is that it's not like the most recent games, but it's like the older ones. It's funny how it works. But basically, there was some news that came out this morning. What happened, Mr. Joel Raptor, with the Far Cry?
Yeah, so obviously, so again, Ubisoft is going to really focus on their biggest franchise. That's kind of their tactic moving forward. So we got the Tom Clancy, so Division, Ghost Recon, and Rainbow Six. Then we obviously know that there are 10 plus Assassin's Creed games in development, and Far Cry is another one of those pillars that they want to focus on. Far Cry 6 did not do as well as they had hoped, so they know that they have to reinvent some stuff here and there. And now we got a leak from Tom Henderson, who has been very credible, who got info on the first, on like Far Cry 7, which also internally called Far Cry 7. So probably going to be called that, or like Project Blackbird is the internal name. But yeah, it will likely be Far Cry 7. And we also know that there might be like a PvP sort of spin-off that they're going to do as well. Because we, of course, had Far Cry PvP with the arcade mode and stuff, but they kind of, put that to the side with Far Cry 6, but they want to go all in with Far Cry 7. It's scheduled for fall 2025, so not next year, but the year after that. Next year, of course, got Red as like the big game, the Japan Assassin's Creed. But this Far Cry game, one of the interesting things is, obviously, it's gonna be like developed by Montreal. Far Cry 6 was Toronto, so they're going back to like the main studio for Far Cry, and they're leaving their previous engine behind and moving to the Snowdrop engine, which we know from Division. Avatar is now using it as well. And the Star Wars game Outlaws is using Snowdrop as well. So they're really moving a lot of their internal development to this engine. I mean, it looks awesome. So I'm curious how a Far Cry first-person game will play. But obviously, a lot of people are saying Avatar is already Far Cry. So it will probably be... they will probably use some elements from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's the kind of interesting stuff is that it will be a non-linear story, and the player's family has been kidnapped. So we have to get them back. There's of course one group, Sons of Truth. It kind of sounds like the Eden's Gate, Far Cry 5. It sounds like a cult that has been taking your family, and the interesting part is that there's an in-game timer that stands at 72 hours or 24 hours in real time. But that timer can be paused when the player enters one of their safe houses. And basically, that is the time that you have to save your family members. If you take longer, they will be killed. And it is actually non-linear, meaning that you can go after maybe your brother or your sister or your mom or your father, whatever, in the order that you want, which we've seen before in Far Cry, obviously, that you can, from moment one kind of choose where to go. And if a family member gets killed, then that will have an impact on the story. So it seems like instead of always kind of winning, always waving the flag at the end of a story arc or whatever, you can actually fail. And it really sounds like LA Noire to me, because they also have a new interrogation mechanic in the game where you can get information from the enemy. Sometimes the enemy will give up the information. Sometimes they will lie or stay quiet, or sometimes even escape, it was said. So, again, two elements from LA Noire, of course, the Rockstar detective game, where you also had to interrogate people and kind of read their sort of face. Are they lying or not? And also in that game, if you were too late at the crime scene, then the killer could have already escaped. So it seems like they're bringing some cool things from that into this game. So I mean, this sounds kind of. I have many questions, like the in-game timer. So when you start this game, you have 72 in-game hours, which are 24 hours. So you have 24 hours to basically finish the main story. That's basically what they're saying.
Yeah.
So you're kind of punished for getting distracted and doing the side content. That's kind of weird. Right?
I actually kind of love this. At least in concept. Again, I mean, it might be just totally horrible when we actually get our hands on it, but this reminds me actually of Dead Rising, a game from all the way back in 2006.
Yeah, never played that.
It's actually pretty, nowadays it's quirky. I think it's actually, it might not be on Game Pass, but it's like $3 on Steam. I mean, it's pretty lighthearted and fun, but in this game, there's a concept where you have an in-game timer, because basically a helicopter is coming back to pick you up, and you have to solve the mystery of what's going on and save as many people as you can before that timer expires. And it's up to the player. Like, they can screw up and a main story character can die or get jumped by zombies or whatever else. And then you fail the main story and it's just over, or you can load back to a previous save and keep going. You can just blow off the main story and just dick around in the hotel, or in the mall rather, not the hotel, the mall, and just have fun exploring and collecting stuff. You can do that. It's just up to the player. But if they want to take the story seriously, they take the story seriously, and they're on time crunches to do that. But if they want to just have fun and go explore and go crazy, they can also just explore and do that. And I think this is a much better way of dealing with it than what a lot of games do, which is they have this really intense narrative, like, plot point, which is your family's been kidnapped, save them. And then you spend 20 hours like going and messing in side content. It was one of my biggest frustrations with like Fallout 4 is your son's been kidnapped. Okay, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to set this wall here, and I'm going to put this stuffed animal here. And like, you just totally get distracted. If you take the story seriously, you don't engage with any side content. But if you want to have the most fun, because they built it with side content in mind, you end up just like not being immersed in the story because you ignore the actual plot points that they've established.
Yeah.
So
very common open world thing.
Yeah. So it's really interesting to me to hear them doing this. It's novel. It's different. And that's exactly what we've been wanting out of a Far Cry game. And again, it could change. This is early. We're talking about a game that's like 2 years out still. So they might rebalance it. It might turn into 36 hours of real world time. It might change down to 12.
Maybe you can like buy a booster and then you get 10 extra hours. That would be a great...
We were joking about that in chat earlier. I was like, oh my God, if they do it like you need 5 extra hours before the credits roll, and so they sell you like a $5 5-hour expansion or booster or whatever, that would be so toxic, man. Oh, hopefully they don't do that. If they did that, we will all tease the ever-living crap out of them, and they will deserve it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's interesting.
Yeah. My another thing, and there's like a really a me problem, but I, for like recording footage, for like showcasing weapons, because for the Far Cry games I've been like making guides and stuff, I always like to record during day, and with the recent Far Cry games you could like really change that. So for this game that's weird, right? So if it's really 72 hours, that means that you will spend a really long time after each other in like dark areas. So you will be like playing for like maybe 4 hours in the dark, right? At one time, because it will be night and you cannot change it, because that would, kind of hurt the narrative. So
the cool
not
thing,
sure how I feel about that.
Well, the cool thing is that they can tie missions to that time period. So in Dead Rising, they also did this where it's like this mission is available from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. because you get a call like this person is stranded in the cafeteria or the food court and is being attacked by a horde of zombies. If you don't get to them in time, the zombies are going to kill them. Like, that just is what it is, because they're taking the story seriously. It's set in actual time periods. So you have to deal with it in that time period. So with Far Cry 7, what I would imagine it is it's like, okay, from 1 to 5 a.m., it's dark, so this is when you can do the mission to take down this encampment or to go and assassinate this target while it's dark outside. And that could be
Yeah, or
really cool.
maybe yeah, maybe it's like during dark there is less guards because they sleep or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that could also be really cool. And this kind of reminds me of what Starfield did as well. I don't want to spoil it, but there was at one point something that was like a week later or something, and I was like doing some selling stuff. So I was like, if you like go forward like 48 hours, the store resets, so you can like sell more stuff. So I was like doing that, and then at one point it was like, where were you at this day? Because I was like, what the heck? I was not paying attention to the time. And of course, like Cyberpunk has these things as well, but luckily in that game you can just go to the location. I'm just gonna wait, and then you're in the convenient or like in the time period that the mission takes place in. So I personally like the more quality of life, not having to worry about that. But on the other hand, like you said, I am ready for something new in Far Cry, and this does sound like that, and this could make, because they obviously don't want to like get rid of the complete formula for the game, but they could make the existing formula way more interesting by having this timer in the back of your head, and also maybe if the time of day plays a part in it.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm all in for a game that sets up an interesting story and then tries to take that story seriously. That's one of my biggest frustrations with Ubisoft stuff in general, is that it's generally pretty lighthearted. They might have some intense stuff happen, but when it comes to gameplay, all of a sudden it's very arcadey and just silly and goofy. So I'm interested. We will see. Again, it's 2 years out probably, but we'll find out.
One more thing though. What if like you, for example, so you have your multiple, like obviously you will have a big open world, and then you will have intel that your brother is being held over there and your mother over there, whatever. What if deciding the order actually also changes the mission, because you will of course get to your first sort of point in on day one, and then to the second point on day two. But what if you replay the game and then on day one, a different thing has happened, because obviously you're not in that time yet. Maybe I'm like thinking of things that they will probably not do, but I do think they could really like just build this world that has this realistic time that will happen no matter what, and just where you show up, that is what happens at that point in time, because it's kind of Westworld, maybe.
Yeah.
That would be kind of cool.
There's a lot of potential because, I mean, it's the first time in a while that Ubisoft is trying something different. And we'll see if it actually like leads to truly different gameplay, or if this is all just marketing types of talks where they can be like, yeah, and you're on a strict timeline, but it ends up that the main story is actually like 15 hours long. And so it's like, yeah, you have 24 hours to do it, but there's no rushing involved whatsoever. You'll have plenty of time. So we'll just have to see. I mean, but it's at the very least different and interesting, and that's all we've wanted. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, maybe they're doing it so they can say Far Cry 8 doesn't have a timer because you guys didn't like it. So they're like,
we tried, guys.
Yeah, we tried.
Stop complaining. Or they have an easy mode where they turn the timer off. We'll see about that. I don't know. They need to stick to it though.
Yeah, no, they will. Yeah.
Speaking of sticking to it, one thing that sticks it to gamers is implying that you should charge more for games, because gamers are not that thrilled with how expensive stuff is currently. So Capcom's president came out and said that he thinks games should cost more. And he actually, so this is one of those things where I don't think he's being deceptive or anything, but there's pieces of information that add context to this conversation that probably changed the conclusion. So for example, he said, personally, I feel that game prices are too low. Development costs are around 100 times higher than they were in the days of the Famicom or NES, but the price of software hasn't risen so much. There is also a need to raise wages in order to attract talented people. Given that wages are rising across the industry as a whole, I think the option of raising unit prices is a healthy form of business, which, again, at its core, doesn't sound that outrageous. What he doesn't mention is that the number of units sold nowadays compared to the NES is vastly larger. I mean, not even close. Digital sales also mean that there's no physical distribution, manufacturing, or anything to account for. So that's extra profit as well. There's also deals you can go onto like Game Pass, as we talked about last week, where Game Pass will pay you $200 million for launching it day one on Xbox. Game Pass. It wasn't clear if that was also exclusive, so you couldn't release it on PlayStation as well. But at least for like cross-platform stuff, there's a conversation to be had there. There's options. And then there's, DLC expansions, which weren't really a thing in the age of the NES because you couldn't download stuff. So downloadable content was not really a thing. So there's just a lot of other pieces to this. Now, one thing I do want to point out, just because we have to, this is a common thing that is just not thought of. If we bring up an inflation calculator, just to put in perspective, gotta do it. I have to do it. If we say $70 in 2023, let's do, I think August is the last month they have. And then we go back to January of 2019. How much do you think $70 was worth? It was equivalent to just under $60. So the jump from 60 to 70 was not actually them rising or raising prices. If you're talking about the value of your dollar, games are actually technically cheaper now versus January of 2019. When you look at value of the dollar, purchasing power. It sucks that money is just magically worth less now, but that's just how inflation works.
But we all got paid more too, right? So it's all evening out.
Yeah, all of our wages increased drastically, didn't they? Yeah. So that whole jump from 60 to 70, I know we all saw it initially as like, oh, they're taking their chance to raise prices and everything. Technically, it was just them adjusting prices to be the same as they were before COVID.
And they're already behind now. That's the crazy part.
Yeah. And I mean, inflation this past month was at like 3.543 or something percent in the US. That's insane. Like it's just your value of your dollar is just steadily crumbling. So I can see what he's saying by wanting to raise prices.
I can see it as well. And it's also like a lot of things in other like businesses. Like, for example, I go to a festival every year where it's like 4 days and a lot of cool bands come, and every year the price increases by $50, and that's like wild. And then the price for a beer also increases from $3 to $4, and that's kind of normal now. And then if I look at games, it's like, okay, they are not that egregious with like their price increases. But the problem, of course, is that weirdly enough, they can do it for the, I mean, music tickets as well are crazy right now. But there is, of course, a limited spot for that. So maybe people are more willing to buy. You just have to find 1,000 people or like maybe 10,000 people that are crazy enough. While with games, it's obviously different. So I totally get it. And we want the best types of games. We want them to invest $200 million so we can have better graphics and the best cutscenes and the most impressive world to explore. So I get it. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't think it's realistic, sadly. So you also have to just look at what is realistic to ask for a game. And in terms of entertainment, gaming is still the way more expensive than, I mean, music. You just subscribe to Spotify. Streaming, you have maybe Netflix and HBO or whatever, and you're good as well. And if you want to keep up with all the games, you have to pay way more. Yeah. So it's already a way more expensive hobby. It's a difficult situation, I think. But we've also seen still a lot of games do very, very well. So it is possible, even though the prices have remained the same, because way more people are playing. Yeah. So that's a good thing, luckily.
Yeah. It does reflect, again, kind of like the first story we touched on, where people like publishers and the people on the business side of the industry are feeling very frustrated with the lack of price increases. But gamers, if anything, gamers feel like games are too expensive nowadays because they buy a $70 game and then they still have to deal with live service crap in there. They have to deal with like $15-20 skins in all of their mobile game or all of their multiplayer games. So they feel like
buy it.
You don't have to buy it, yeah, but the whole game is built around these monetization systems, and whether it's like we've said before, perception is often more important than reality in discussions with consumers. In this case, it doesn't really matter if factually games are cheaper than they were 10 years ago for consumers, because the perception is that people are paying more for less now. That's the perception, and that's what publishers are going up against. Like, factually, if you say $60 is $60 and you roll back the clocks, adjust for inflation, games are cheaper, but it also feels as though we're paying more for worse games consistently. And whether that's factually true, that's the perception that these publishers have to deal with. And games like Baldur's Gate 3, which is a remarkable once every decade type of game, that makes it even harder for these publishers, and that's why they freaked out initially when it came out, because they charged $60 for it, and it's an amazing game with hundreds of hours of content, and they just casually drop it, and no DLC, no microtransactions, nothing. It just is what it is. I can understand why publishers are freaked out and are stressing about it, but I mean, just try to raise the price of games again. Go to $90 each and you will see quite the response. I'll tell you what. Try it, Capcom. We'll see how that goes for you.
I mean, Capcom is still at 60. That's the interesting part as well. Like they haven't even like gone to the new level.
So. Yeah, maybe they'll adjust. Maybe this next round of releases they'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. But it was an interesting take, and I think it reflects what every CEO is talking about behind closed doors, which is how do we charge more? I mean, it brings to mind the rumor that GTA 6 was going to cost $150 at launch. And Rockstar was just going to be like, yeah, it's $150. Deal with it. You're going to buy it anyway, sucker. I don't think they're actually going to do that. I think they'll do 70. But I do think they'll charge like week to 2 week early access for the deluxe premium edition. That's going to be $150.
Yeah,
everybody will buy it. Like, let's be honest, everybody.
Yeah, or they will have GTA Online probably at launch with all the shark cards or whatever. So they will be set for that. I mean, I think they want people buying that game because they want them getting like hooked on GTA Online so they can get even more stuff out of them. I mean, we have actually already been seeing like. There are with the deluxe editions and the gold editions and whatever they come up with, like we are seeing that you can buy way more or like you have the option to pay more for a game and get some extras. And I think that's actually a better way of doing it, that give people the option to pay more for your game, because I do want to like pay money. I do want to like support the games that I like and that bring quality to me. So if I have to pay more and get some cool extras, I'm totally fine with that. But make sure that at least the barrier to entry is still at that $70 mark. So at least a lot of people can enjoy the hobby still without having to get a lot of money. But I mean, right now also all these franchises, like they want people getting excited for the game. Like Horizon, for example, they have 2 games out, 2 main games, and they have thousands like different types of merchandise. Like I do think it's nice for these companies to have, especially in a worldwide now where you can like there's so much stuff asking for your attention. You want people in your game. That's actually so valuable, because then they might become a fan and then they might spend more outside of the game, not even on microtransactions. So I think keeping that barrier low is actually very smart. And then hopefully extract some money out of that, or have them talk about your game highly so other people buy it. Like, I don't think having the 150 makes a lot of sense.
I haven't seen their numbers behind closed doors. I mean, of course, they know better what their polling and surveys tell them. I think Arno brings up an interesting point. Keep in mind, he says in chat, it was Take-Two that first charged $70 for a game with 2K21, and I bet they're going to do the same thing with GTA 6. It'll be 75. I mean, I agree. If any studio, or rather publisher, were to do this, if any publisher were to come along and charge some amount more than 70 for their release, it would be Take-Two with GTA 6. And I think people will be shocked if they do that. I think people would be shocked at how well it still sells. The sheer volume of people that I think would be willing to spend $150 for GTA 6 on day one, I think it would be overwhelming. And then,
Or
like I
day
said,
minus 12.
day minus 12. Yeah, it's the actual launch date. Everybody else, all the peasants that aren't going to pay that amount will have to wait. Like, it's just I would not be surprised if they do something like that early access, or if they try to establish the ultra premium new standard of pricing where it's like, yeah, quadruple A games, $90. And then early access is like 150. And maybe in the long term, maybe that's better for the business side of the industry. $90 for quadruple A games like God of War, Elden Ring, GTA 6, those games that are probably going to be 9 or 10s. And then everything else like AAA lands at that 60, 70 mark. Indie games are like 40 and below. Maybe that's healthier for the industry. I don't think gamers would respond well to it, but I do think it would be. I think people would be surprised at how many people would buy it.
I mean, because God of War also has to sell units, and maybe people will be stopped by, okay, I have to buy the PS5 and get the $90 game. That might actually stop them from even wanting to get invested in the system, because okay, wow, I have to pay way more. And I think for Ubisoft, it's nice to have people playing Mirage, because they might, I'm not sure if you saw the menu that got leaked, live up your experience, or they use a weird wording, because they will of course have item packs in the game. They want people playing that game, so hopefully they will spend more on it, because selling an item pack for $20 is like $90 profit, or probably more. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's I think the industry can go one of two ways, and it's that they double down on the $70 price point, and then they fill in the gap and get extra revenues by way of microtransactions like you're mentioning, or I guess there's three options, or they shift and they do like a multi-tiered system where it's ultra premium games are more expensive than the games that are premium, and then the mid-tier indie games are at a lower price point than that.
Yeah, but what does that tell you? That GTA 6, or maybe that's not the best example, but like this game, that is ultra premium. This other game, still really good, but it's not ultra premium. So that kind of tells you, okay, why would I invest in this lesser game? They even think it's lesser because
I think by that point, like you could say, well, with Mirage, so Ubisoft is admitting Mirage is a bad game because they're pricing it less. I don't think so. It's just a lower budget. It's a lower, smaller in scope game. And I think consumers understand that too. I just think it would introduce more variability in pricing, and maybe that fixes or at least addresses, maybe it doesn't fix, but it at least would be a way of addressing the problem right now, which is that 10 out of 10 games like a Red Dead 2 cost the same as like Immortals of Avium, which is okay. And it creates this weird influx of people not wanting to spend money on anything other than big AAA games. Which are in that quadruple A space. But I mean, again, I don't think anybody could pull it off except GTA 6 coming along and being like,
Elder
this game.
Scrolls.
I don't even think Elder Scrolls could do it.
No,
GTA 6 is on such a different planet. It's just nothing even approaches it.
I think Elder Scrolls is good. Not getting near that, but it's
it's big.
Maybe.
It's certainly big. Yeah. I don't think it's anywhere freaking close to
maybe
GTA
they should
6.
call it Skyrim too. Maybe it will sell more that way.
If they do that, man, that would be so funny.
Maybe I would not be surprised if people if you go on the street and ask random people, do you know what Skyrim is versus do you know what Elder Scrolls is?
Yeah,
maybe more people know Skyrim.
Probably more people know Skyrim, I would bet, and I think vastly more people would know what GTA is. What Grand Theft Auto is.
Yeah, of course.
So we'll see. Okay. Either way, GTA 6 is going to be insane. Let's shift into something else that might be insane.
Yeah, I mean, it will probably be insane. I mean, we kind of knew about this already, but during a panel, the Cal Kestis actor, Cameron, he basically said, "We're working on the third game, and we're in the progress of doing that right now." I'm not sure if he was allowed to say that, but he did, and now it's out there. And I mean, we already knew they wanted to do like a trilogy and stuff. We did know, though. The panel took place only shortly before Stick, the director of both Star Wars Jedi games, announced that he was leaving developer Respawn Entertainment. So that was kind of interesting. He appeared on an IGN podcast earlier this year where he said before Jedi Survivor came out, "Yeah, I want to do a trilogy. We always envisioned it, blah blah." And now he's leaving Respawn, so he won't be there for the third game. But yeah, that's always how it goes, right? When developers are saying, "Yeah, we want to launch this game first and then we will see what's next." That's always bullshit because they have artists or concept artists. They have a story writers and stuff like that. They have to do something in the studio. They're not just waiting around for the game to ship. So they will probably already know what's next half a year before the game is out, because that is when the game is in the polishing state. So their work is less needed. So they were probably already working on a third game or having the outline for it at the end of last year. And yeah, they're now working on it now that the second game is out. And like with the first game, I think they already were planning the second game as well, but that was like kind of how is it going to do? With the first game doing really well, Jedi Fallen Order, of course, they knew Jedi Survivor will do pretty well too. Let's make a third game as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean the departure of Stig Asmussen was certainly interesting. It reminded me actually of what happened back with Uncharted 3, where Amy Hennig had been the head over at Naughty Dog, developed Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, and then she left. She did Uncharted 3 as well, but she left before Uncharted.
During development of Uncharted 4. They had to rewrite the whole game.
It was really weird and disjointed, and there's still some odd sections where it feels disjointed because of that. But it makes me wonder, like, again, we don't know where he's going. He isn't retiring. He said he's moving on to other projects or to pursue other adventures.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe he's going to pop up and be like an employee at Amazon for something, because Amazon's picking up a lot of talent right now. You just never know. He's probably going somewhere where they're just offering him.
I mean, he also did. Yeah, he also was the director on God of War 3, and now he did Jedi Fallen Order and proved that he can like do a successful sequel as well. So he's probably a wanted man, and maybe he was like, I can do the third game. I know what I can expect from that. Or because he like built this team from scratch, now this team is like an oiled machine. Maybe it's like, I'm ready for the next challenge, and I know the game is in good hands.
Yeah.
And maybe Tencent or whoever, Amazon.
Dude, can you imagine?
Yeah,
Tencent, yeah, they got that mobile game money. You never put it past Tencent.
Maybe he's gonna like do Genshin Impact characters now. That's also a lot of money.
Now that's a challenge. Yeah. Really moving on to bigger and better things. Speaking of moving on to bigger and better things, Baldur's Gate 3. This morning and yesterday, there's kind of a debate going on with regards to Baldur's Gate 3, started by the one and only Synth Potato. Synth Potato is like a friend of the channel, does a lot of coverage of like Rockstar stuff. Is just a passionate gamer, but put this thing out there that ignited quite the debate on Twitter/X. And what he said was, quote, "Hot take. Larian should add real-time combat to Baldur's Gate 3. Take all the profit from the game and make it an option. I'd pay money for that as a DLC. A huge amount of players, including myself, who want to get into that game but cannot due to it being turn-based. They'd probably triple their sales and be able to reach a much wider audience if they added that as an option." What do you think of this?
Sounds like an EA board member. Because that's, I think, what happened kind of with Dragon Age, right?
Yeah.
Because Origins was turn-based, or was turn-based, right? And then Dragon Age It was like semi.
They're like semi, if I recall correctly.
You could like pause the game and then give people like things to do, but also it would like play out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were not actively, I think, controlling the character and like swinging the sword yourself, right?
Yeah, it's like it's. I mean, normally people just compare it to Dragon Age, but it has like the companions that, like you said, you can command or set certain behaviors or goals, and then they'll act those out on your behalf.
Yeah, and then they completely switched that with Dragon Age 2. I haven't played that one because I heard it wasn't that great, but that was more like an action thing, right? And I think they're doing that now with the new game Dreadwolf that is probably coming out next year. So I think that's kind of the sort of thought, and I think Final Fantasy went through this as well. They were like, let's reinvent Final Fantasy 7. Let's make Final Fantasy 16 and have it be. I mean, Final Fantasy 16 went the complete like DMC route. 7 remake obviously is also very action focused, but still has a bit more of the older elements. But yeah, that seems to be a common thing for, I think, publishers, that action sells more. But then I think turn-based games have not been more popular than ever, and that was even before Baldur's Gate, because that was kind of like the thing that I saw a lot when Baldur's Gate was super popular. That were people like, whoa, turn-based games can be good, or see, turn-based games are back. And I was like, okay, maybe you are not paying attention to the mobile market, but some of the most popular mobile games, I'm gonna say it, Raid Shadow Legends, and there are like a lot of these like disliked, like these hero collecting games. Star Wars: A Galaxy of Heroes from EA has like 1 billion downloads or like 1 billion revenue or whatever. Like, that's a huge game, all turn-based. Pokemon, of course, turn-based. So yeah, it has always been like huge. And I do think it has. I still have not played Baldur's Gate 3 because I haven't at the time. So correct me if I'm wrong, but seems like, I mean, I think there's some. I mean, certainly more people would play it, for sure. But I don't think it should be like a thing that you want. It's like saying, okay, this Call of Duty game needs to have like magic or something. Like, no, this is what they envisioned. It makes sense for the D&D sort of thing they're going for. So why would you completely change the genre of the game? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
I agree. The turn-based combat is like, the whole thing is built around 5th edition D&D. Like, the whole thing is built around that. So to shift to real time, you could put all that stuff under the hood. But the cool thing about Baldur's Gate 3,
saying that
with mods you can do all sorts of stuff like that. Doesn't. I've looked at one because we were going to do a video on one of them, and it was pretty clunky and it broke a lot of stuff. So maybe they'll get there eventually. But I mean, to say that it should be turned into a real-time game or a real-time combat system, to me reflects a misunderstanding of how it actually works and what it's trying to do. It's supposed to be very slow, methodical, and tactical. And the other thing is, the reason a lot of people don't like turn-based games and combat systems is because they are slow-paced. I mean, in Baldur's Gate 3, some boss fights will take like an hour and a half because it's just a ton of stuff to deal with, very slow, controlling all your characters, getting them in the right position. It can be very time-consuming, and that's one of the things that makes it the most rewarding. But obviously, for some people, that slow-paced combat is just not what they're looking for, and the real-time stuff that moves faster they would like more. But all of Baldur's Gate 3 is built around that slow, methodical approach to exploration, to narrative, to discussions, conversations, combat, everything. And so I don't think these people would like Baldur's Gate 3 even if they changed it to a real-time combat system. I think they'd get into it and be like, okay, now can you make the conversations a little snippier? Can you it would just be the next thing.
You make a really good point, because then it would be very, very obvious that you're talking a lot as well, because then the combat would be like maybe 5 minutes and then you're back to talking for a lot of the time.
I just think it's nothing wrong with somebody like a Synth Potato. There absolutely are millions of players like this who are looking at Baldur's Gate 3, hearing the overwhelmingly positive reception, and are like, I would like to get into it, but I just am not clicking with it, and that's okay. But I don't think that this is, there's a quick fix to make this. I think to change it into something that they would like more would be to fundamentally change it into something that is very, very different and potentially not as good.
No. What do you think of the sort of where people are like, I wish this game had a third person mode while it is first person only? Like Cyberpunk is a good one, and the new Avatar game, of course, is first person as well. Apart from like flying, similar to Cyberpunk, when you are in a vehicle, you can see a third person view. What is your take on that? Because obviously we just had Starfield, and there you can like switch around. Which personally I like choices a lot, but I can imagine that for a game like Cyberpunk it's like pretty hard to do. But yeah, I think like a camera option, I think that's kind of different than saying, yeah, they should completely fundamentally change the game.
Yeah. I mean, with the camera angle thing, I mean, the one thing is first person versus third person. I know people complain about like FOV sliders on console all the time. That stuff all ties into optimization and performance. When you have a wider FOV, you have to render more stuff at the same time versus a tighter FOV. So it's not as simple as just giving you a slider. Like on PC, they give you a wider FOV. Boom. If your PC can handle it, you're fine. It might drop frames a little, but who cares? On console, that's the difference between 30 FPS and 25. And that's not something they can just take. So sometimes it's not that simple, and they trade that flexibility for performance or for fidelity.
Good points.
As for like, Starfield, third person combat, and that's a classic Bethesda staple, is being able to switch between them. I think it's cool. I played pretty much all of Starfield in first person because personally I found the combat system to be borderline unplayable in third person. I know you didn't mind it. I couldn't stand it in third person.
It depended on the weapon in particular, for me. So some pistols had like a scope that you just could not see if you were like playing in third person. So he was like, where am I hitting? But I did like it for like exploring the city and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that option is pretty nice.
I think the one thing with Cyberpunk where it just doesn't make any damn sense why it's only first person is because of the cosmetics. Like you do all this crazy augmentation stuff, costumes, everything, and you just never see it unless you go up to a mirror and lean against the counter and stare at your reflection. Like you
especially
never see
now that the outfit pieces are only cosmetic. Like only the head pieces have some like 5% extra melee resistance or whatever. But apart from that, so there's no reason to pick up new stuff unless you're like a photo mode fanatic and wants to capture everything. But like you're right, and then I see, watch this streamer and get a pants from who what's his name? Like why?
Yeah.
Why would I need these pants?
Yeah, like who cares? So I agree with Cyberpunk. The lack of third person it's particularly stark. It feels very strange that you can customize all this and literally never see it, except at the very end of the game when you kind of land on an ending. They always pull out into third person during the final shots. But other than that,
not even with the new one though. Not the one to spoil too much, but I'm not sure if you saw that yet.
Well, one of the options for the expansion ending, it will pull into third person.
But not with your outfit.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah. I was like, no, there is. It does pull out to third person. But no, you're totally right. Yeah. No spoilers, but still. Let's talk about other things that are baffling and probably really stupid. Are you ready, Joe Raptor?
What are you talking about? Horizon coming to PC?
Oh no, I pulled up the wrong tab. I guess we'll do this one first. We'll do EA first.
I was like, are you really I know you don't like Horizon as much as I do, but come on, man. Yeah, what the heck?
I went out of order on our doc, so that was probably confusing.
That was a great introduction though. No, but it's like a small news story. The game is finally coming to PC. Of course, the first one was a huge success on PC. I think selling even more than 1 million units. And that was like when the PS5 was not out yet. So then it was actually really exciting to play Horizon Zero Dawn on a machine that could handle 60 FPS. But now the sequel, Forbidden West, that launched early February 2021 or 2022. No, 2022. Yeah, or a week before Elden Ring, of course. Is now coming to PC in early 2024 with a complete edition, including the DLC that launched earlier this year. And yeah, it has all the deluxe edition goodies. So yeah, it's like a full package. And that same package is also coming to PS5. So if you somehow did not play the sequel yet or are just picking up a PS5, you can now get like a sweet bundle and get everything in one place. And it's actually kind of nice because while for the Frozen Wilds DLC for Zero Dawn was like a mid way through the story expansion, I think it's actually kind of cool that now if you never played Forbidden West and finish the game, you can actually continue because the DLC takes place after the ending. So it's kind of like a nice, very, very long epilogue to that game,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of cool. And I mean, I'm happy that PC players get. I think it's like interesting that a lot of people are super excited about this. I'm even seeing that in my audience where I'm like, but I thought everyone already played it that wanted, and that also kind of shows that maybe Sony should just launch these like day one. Like, why wait if everyone is willing to wait 2 years?
I
They're probably willing to pick it up day one as well.
I mean, from what I've seen, there absolutely are PC players that are going to play it for the first time. Absolutely, there's a lot of those. But I think that there's a ton of people that also are just going to buy it for the second time on their PC. They already played it and are just going to see it running at full 4K 60 or 4K 120, whatever they can push it to. I think there's a lot of people like that. In which case, launching it day one PC doesn't actually help. Whereas waiting a year or two, taking their time on the port, hopefully getting it right, and then releasing it captures not just the first time players on PC, but also captures all of the Horizon fans that are like, oh, well, yeah, I could play it again. I could revisit it. Let me just buy it again for $70 anew.
Yeah, probably.
And or 60. I think it's 60. Yeah. 60. 70 euros.
Great. But that's actually really a great price because I was like talking about this in like my weekly news roundup video that I do. But for example, Ratchet and Clank and Returnal both launched at full price as well, but they did not include any extra content. So they were the same price as on PS5, but 2 years later. But now you're getting Horizon with the DLC, which is like already a pretty sweet package because the DLC was $20. Yeah, for the same full price that it will probably cost on PlayStation 5 as well when it launches on October 6th. So that's actually kind of nice,
Yeah.
I guess.
It's not hyper aggressive. It's not bad at all. Not now, Nev. I don't know why Sony is all in on Horizon. It's a snore. The main reason is like Horizon shows really well. Horizon looks great in trailers. It looks great in marketing materials. It showcases the power of the PS5 really, really well, and that's why they love it. I mean, it.
I mean, that's part of it, but that's Guerrilla Games for you. Like Killzone was that as well, but they obviously stopped that as well. Like that's kind of like what Guerrilla's thing is. But I also think that they're looking at this, and of course, you cannot compare it yet to a God of War or to a Last of Us or whatever. But I think there have only been 2 games out, and yeah, obviously The Last of Us also 2 games. But I think like actually Forbidden West sold just as well as Part 2. But like they're seeing a ton of potential here, and I think this is just a very interesting universe. And I do agree that maybe the second one did not hit as well as it had to compared to the first game that sold more than 20 million copies, which is insane for a first new IP. That's wild. So it makes sense that they want to invest more in it. Maybe the degree in which they're investing more in it is kind of crazy, with like them remaking the first game is rumored. There's a Netflix show coming, an online game that is coming, like a multiplayer game, Monster Hunter style probably. Then they're also seemingly doing an MMORPG for PC with NCSoft. Like that's maybe a little bit too crazy to go all in like that, but I do think it makes sense. Like Ghost of Tsushima is gonna get the same treatment. Yeah, they're seeing a lot of potential for a relatively new genre or like a relatively new series to already be this successful and this popular.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
It's got I don't know how much credit actually should be laid at the feet of Sean Layden, but it seems like a lot because he was just the master of greenlighting these projects that turn into gold and that PlayStation's going to be benefiting from for decades. I mean, he really knew which projects had potential and which ones didn't. We'll see if Jim Ryan has the same skill. I don't think we've seen. Have we seen him greenlight? Or Herman? Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I don't know if we've seen many new
so
ones.
far. Fair Games and Concord, like the live service stuff. Like it is like going back to like the earlier part, like Phil Spencer saying all these companies are now banking on series they made 10 plus years ago. Like it's not the same for Sony because these franchises are not that old, but it does kind of feel like it, right? Where we will see Horizon 3 as like the next single player game from Guerrilla Games. We will get Ghost 2 and probably Ghost 3. Insomniac will probably make Spider-Man 1, 2. Like they're doing Wolverine as well. Still a Marvel game. But yeah, I'm curious if this generation Sony will have a lot of like potential new franchises just like that PS4 gen. We know Cory Barlog, of course, the God of War director, is working on something new.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog, hopefully
something new. That I don't know if that's what Neil is working on. Has he said if he's working on something new?
No, they've been really vague, but that's probably because it's Last of Us 3. Like, I think they're gonna like end that and then have like the TV show go on for another 10 years, so they don't have to worry about that, and then move to a new IP.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But
we'll see. Again, my bucket list game is I would love for Naughty Dog or Santa Monica or somebody like that does third person narrative gritty adventure stories. I would love to see a pirate game developed by them in the golden age of piracy, starring Anne Bonny, tell that story. It would be so amazing with their level of fidelity. I'd kill for it, but we'll find out. I doubt it's ever gonna happen, but a boy can dream.
The amount of like eyeballs still on Skull and Bones, like I saw some people doing videos on the beta, and people are still like, I want this to be good, fingers crossed, and then they look at it and like, Ubisoft never fails to disappoint. Like that's kind of like the main comment with the most likes. Like there is so much like, I totally think that would be like a cool thing. Like just have a Ghost of Tsushima type game in the golden age of piracy.
Yeah,
cool.
Dude, people love it. People still are like obsessed with Black Flag, and it feels like there's just been no attempt really to have pirate games to tap into that narrative.
Getting the remake.
Yeah, they're getting a remake. Yeah, eventually. Isn't it being done by the same team as Skull and Bones though? Like,
yeah, it really feels like the sort of let's get more out of the assets from Skull and Bones.
Yeah, dude, for real. They're just
situation.
Control C, Control V. Like that's all it's gonna be. Speaking of Control C, Control V, sports games.
That's a nice segue.
Yeah, there we go. Sports games. That's why they pay me the big bucks. EA is doing something weird, and that actually makes sense. It looks like they lost their licensing deal with FIFA, so they are delisting FIFA 23, FIFA 22, all of those games, and they are moving
all of them.
Yeah, 22, 21, FIFA 20. But they're delisting all those games, and they are going to be launching this week FC 24, not FIFA 24, FC, which I think stands for Football Championship. Is that what it stands for? Football Club. So Football Club. And
the logo looks like they had some like the best sort of designers in the business make this logo, because at a glance it looks like FIFA, because it's like FC, and I don't know how they put it. I was like, that's very smart.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is bizarre. It's a huge loss for them. I mean, it's a big deal. What I honestly don't know though is if somebody in chat has played these games, let me know. Are they still able to use like the same players and teams and stuff if they don't have an official licensing deal?
I mean, I don't think FIFA actually had the deal for that. It was like mostly EA Sports with the club. I think they actually have more players now than in the previous games, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Wow. It prints money for them. I mean, it's a huge game, even though it's the same thing every year. Um, but like if they lose the licensing deals, I'm like, wouldn't that mean like if you lose the NFL license to make Madden, you can't make
No, but
games
that's
with those?
different, though, I think. And they actually said, Andrew Wilson, the CEO for EA, he said actually that losing the FIFA license actually gives them way more room to go to sport brands that do not like have a deal with FIFA and include them in the game, so they can actually like put way more stuff in the game and are not like restricted by the deals that FIFA made without them.
Okay, interesting. So you guys are saying FIFA's a different license than the individual franchises. So they're going to just go
Yeah.
to each individual franchise,
Yeah.
license directly through them instead of bothering with
And they have
FIFA to
more
begin with.
money. Like, and they have more money now because they're not paying the $1 billion or whatever it is to for FIFA. And actually,
Mm.
FIFA, like the name FIFA is, I've like Andrew Wilson, and I'm not sure if that was like in a leaked email or whatever, but he was actually like saying, I think we are the ones that actually put FIFA in a better light than, of course, the sort of crazy people that are in charge there. That
Hmm.
of course like so they are actually like FIFA has a bad name, but because of the game, yeah, people know it more. Maybe more people know it from the game than actually from the soccer body or
That
football
would
body
be
that it
funny
is.
if
Yeah.
that's how. So yeah, that's happening. If you guys are fans of what's formerly
I
FIFA,
mean, it is pretty convenient, right, for EA to be because like they are like, yeah, now the only like official sports game that you can buy is our own that we
yeah.
own ourselves. Like that's pretty crazy, and I'm really curious to see what the units will be. I think the UK charts will probably. I'm not sure if they already, because of course there was like an early access sort of version that they sold last week already. So I'm curious what like the numbers are compared to the previous uh to FIFA, because do you really think that a lot of people are not aware of this change? That they go into the store and are like, what the heck is FC? Or do you think that they
I,
know and
I mean, if it
uh,
passes the glance test, they probably don't care. My understanding is most of these like sports games, they're very much oriented around like groups of friends that play them together. And so the primary difficulty is just getting past the initial hurdle of making sure all the friends own the same type of game so they can play together. So as long as all of like the friend group is able to figure it out and understand that it's different, that's all that really needs to happen. So I guess it probably
you
doesn't
need
make that
to
big of a
focus
difference.
on the opinion leader in the friend group.
Yeah.
That's some marketing speak for you there. Okay, it's not in the UK charts. Or wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong ending September 23rd. So we don't have, I think, the new one yet. Hmm.
Yeah, well, maybe next
But
week we'll know.
yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, I see some people in the chat also say that it's like not a great not a great game this year. Like, of course, especially with games taking longer and longer, these games still have to launch every year. Like they only have 8 full months of development time. So, and with how things are moving right now, or actually how slow, they can only get less done every year.
Yeah.
So at one point they will have to like just go full live service, you would think, right? But
Yeah,
leaving too much money
probably.
on the table then.
And I'm what do they do at that point? Just a $10 a month subscription to play the game? Do they do that? That wouldn't surprise me. I'm
Like
honestly surprised they haven't done that already for like Madden. Just make you pay $10 a month. It's free to play otherwise, but if you want the active rosters, you have to pay
but,
10
but
bucks
the,
a
the
month.
crazy part, of course, is I think also with those games that they reset every year. So, and that's the crazy part. Like, that imagine like playing Fortnite and every year all your skins are gone. Like that's kind of what it is,
Yeah.
and that's crazy. And I'm not
Which
sure how
like
that can work in a live
exactly.
service
Like
model.
how anybody puts up with it is amazing to me, but they've gotten their communities used to it enough that they can get away with it. And that's what's
I
insane
think
to me.
people I think people are actually excited about it. That's the crazy part, because you like kind of start fresh again, and you're because at one point, like, these games are of course designed like that, and live service games are designed to last for an unlimited amount of time. But these games are designed to, like, in June, you should probably get the best players and have like a super OP team, so nothing to chase for anymore. Um, and yeah, that's of course kind of hard to do if you're selling just updates every year. So.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's the yearly grind. Yeah, it's not a bug, it's a feature. That's part of it. Oh man.
But it's like these freaking, like, I mean, the whole loot box situation is of course like a completely different like sort of topic. But these games, like especially NBA 2K and yeah, FIFA as well, like these games do make sure that these big publishers can release Marvel's Midnight Suns, where they spent $200 million on, and get nothing in return, because they will sell 10 million copies of NBA, and those people will also buy all the cards and stuff. So yeah, they are in the black every year anyways. So that's like, I think, kind of the positive sort of thing, I think, for these, if you can call it that, that it does get money from people that don't play a lot of other games, and that money usually funds the games that we do like to play. I would actually like to believe that in a way.
That's what I choose to believe.
That's what
Okay, let's shift into our final little topic. I told people in chat during our stream before this that we would talk about this because they wanted to hear your opinion on it. We both have decent YouTube channels, I would say. And so we could be considered experts in this field. Now, there's a YouTuber by the name of Kwebbelkop.
A fellow Dutchie.
A fellow Dutchman. Yes, quite. You might recognize him. He mainly did like GTA, like GTA 5 playthroughs on his channel. Like, he's kind of one of those Let's Players.
We're gonna race and
yeah. Oh my God, we're gonna race. We're gonna jelly. Look at this jelly. There's his friend that he plays with. It's not my cup of tea, but he's built a channel that has like 14 million subs or something. He's a huge creator. Average age is probably around 11, but he took some flack because he announced that he was going to go all in on AI. Now, what the hell does that mean? Basically, he announced that he wanted to build a system where he could use what he called Kwebbelkop AI. And it was this weird animated head thing. And he set it up to effectively just dynamically generate videos for him, where he didn't need to film his own reactions. They could use AI to write, to script it, to film it, get the whole thing start to finish. I guess this is his idea of like a cool version of unique content or something. Really, really weird. And people didn't have that great of a response to it. A lot of people were like, bro, this is just like, you're finding a way to make lazy videos even lazier. Like, what are we doing? So he put this video out. Now, if you watch this video on his Twitter page, you'll notice there's something weird about it.
I was strict.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at it like full on. I was just like keeping it on the background, like checking it a bit, and I was strict till the end. So.
Oh, you were tricked? Okay.
Yeah.
I was watching it and I thought there was something odd about it. His voice didn't line up perfectly with his lips. It was just kind of odd. Everything was kind of weirdly head bobby. Turns out this is all AI generated as well. He isn't actually talking here. He's not sitting there being filmed or anything. This is just an AI generated thing. So this is the new version compared to the old cartoony thing he was doing, but he's doubling down on it and even generating AI Let's Plays with like fake green screen artifacting behind him, where this AI character,
we don't die. We're good.
Like, I'm gonna play it, just I guess listen on stream and you can hear it. This is the AI generated voice and yelling that he's doing while having an AI pretend to be him and pretend to play Roblox for a video to entertain children.
Didn't mean to do that. My bad. All right, what's in here? Hello? Sorry, burrito. Are we supposed to jump down there? I feel like I will die. Let's check the next toilet real quick. That is disgusting. Oh my god, who would do that? Okay, I guess we have no other choice but to jump down here. Hopefully we don't die. We're good. Hello. Are you okay, ma'am? What?
Like, he managed to make lazy content for children even lazier. And now it's just even weirder. It's just like Uncanny Valley. It's not entertaining. It's just like a cool, like, honestly, it's a cool tech demo. Honestly, like, it's just cool. I don't understand what the point is, though. Like, his whole Twitter feed is now like waves crashing and spaghetti. He can do AI generated stuff like that. Like, if his plan is just to pivot and Kwebbelkop AI is just going to be a new business where he's going to sell this to like commercial makers or filmmakers who can then just type in what they want on the frame and then AI generates it so they don't have to film it themselves, that's not a bad idea. I think there's a market for that. Instead of needing B-roll, I can just type in bowl of spaghetti steaming. Like, that's cool. But to think that this like is going to replace YouTubers and stuff or just your content, to me, is bizarre. What do you think of all of this, though?
One of the things I want to start with is that he thought NFTs was like gonna be a big thing as well. So let's just put that out there as well. Like, he's really right now. I think it's like, on one end, pretty cool that he's trying new things and investing in the technology with all the money that he earned over YouTube. Like, he had at like the highest point, his channel generated like 100 million views per month. So that's
just a lot.
That's insane.
That's not counting YouTube Shorts. Like, that's pure
No,
views.
that was way before YouTube Shorts.
That's just
so that's
views.
like he's like filthy rich. He's like super rich. He has also like an apartment in Amsterdam's like 10 minutes like cycle for me. Like 7 million is that apartment in the Netherlands. Like, he has a ton of money. But I think it's cool. Like, he's also doing a game development studio. So he has like, I think he's like working on a sort of roguelike skateboarding game that I think during Summer Game Fest, one of the streams, not like the big ones, I think, but like one of the smaller streams highlighted. So he's like a whole gaming studio that he's overseeing. And he's like just wants to be, because he was, of course, like super successful with his YouTube channel. He was there, one of the first people to make that type of content. And if you look at it now, he doesn't get a lot of views anymore. It's kind of died down. Just the whole Let's Play stuff on YouTube in general has kind of died down because those people, of course, grew older. And now I would imagine that the newer generation that would be interested in that is on TikTok instead. So that's kind of, I think, where that changed. So he's now like investing in this. But I look at it and it's like, okay, that's another thing that he's trying to do. It really, I mean, there are ways to already farm views on YouTube. There was also like one person in the Netherlands who actually was selling sort of courses that you could do, and then they would tell you, okay, yeah, find a topic that a lot of people search for. Then you have like editors from like in like a foreign country that for €5 or $5 make a video for you, and then you only have to write the script, or sometimes those companies even write the script, and then there's like a word for it, but you're basically farming views. You're basically looking at the 10 most beautiful houses ever, or like The Weeknd sold this house for like weird stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff like that already on YouTube, and I just don't like when something like sounds too good to be true. It usually is, and this kind of sounds to people like, oh, I can now also be a YouTuber because I will just make this AI that will make videos for me. I don't think it's gonna work like that. It's for him kind of like a bad look now, because it really shows how he views his content, that he thinks an AI can do that as well, which kind of shows that what he was doing in the first place was not that interesting at all.
Yeah.
And it might work for the kids that are his core audience that maybe cannot see the difference. And Like I mean, I think the technology that is using, like just looking at it from like a technical standpoint, is pretty impressive. That you do see him. There's not a lot of emotion yet, but that will obviously only get better and get better. And yeah, at one point it might be similar to what he did, but then again, it kind of shows you that maybe what he did wasn't that special in the first place. Obviously, not taking away from all the work he has done, because it's not easy to build a YouTube channel like that. But I don't think it's like a thing moving forward for a lot of other YouTubers. I think people come to YouTube for takes from actual people. And it's just like, I think also a challenge for us as creators to still, give that extra thing. Like I sometimes like joked, asked ChatGPT like, what's the best weapon in Valhalla, because that's like a lot of the content that I make. And he had like I said they or it had like a very stupid answer, and I was like, okay, my job is safe.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, stupid. That's wrong, dummy.
That's a really bad weapon. So yeah, it is kind of interesting, and I don't know. I don't think it's gonna like. I mean, there's probably going to be a praise for AI if it's used in a very interesting way. If you, can make something interesting about it, or maybe have really people think about personalities for these AIs. I mean, you have VTubers already, I think, in Japan and Asia, like in general, that are, I think, pretty popular. But aren't these like usually real people that are just virtual?
It's just like scans your camera and then puts a mesh or something over top of it.
Yeah. So it's still like a person, but yeah. I don't know. I think it's just interesting to watch. I don't think it's like a really bad thing, and I think he doesn't care about the sort of negative feedback. He's only like I think he's like, okay, wow, I'm finally in the spotlight again, because I was surprised that you actually like brought this up to talk about it in the podcast. So it does make the rounds, and I do think that's actually what he wants. He wants to build something that people are looking at, and even if it's not successful, he still did something that nobody else has done so far. And
I mean, he has, like you mentioned, he has what's known in the industry as FU money, where he can do whatever he wants, and if you don't like it, FU. I mean, the top comment on his most recent video: trapped in a girls only prison in Roblox. Just let you absorb that. Top comment is, can we all appreciate how Kwebbelkop produces such unwatchable content? Like, he's obviously getting flack from his audience. His channel at this point has fallen from where it was initially, but to give him credit, like Jor was saying, it takes talent and it takes a lot of work to build a 15 million sub channel. That's insane. I meant to share the screen for everybody watching. I'm sorry. But like, that's crazy. That's an accomplishment. And now he just has all this money and he's just doing things that he finds more engaging. And I think what Joe Raptor said, you put it better than I could have, which was just that the fact he thinks an AI can quickly and easily replicate his content shows more of what he thinks of his own content and his own audience than anything else. And that's that it's pretty cheap and lazy content that he can just pump out quickly with an AI.
Yeah.
At least that's his impression.
That seems to be the way he approached this, instead of how am I going to make the best video possible? Because I don't think... I mean, it's not that he is still doing the content and then has this AI like that is someone completely different and does like cool personality, like jokes with them or something. Like, he's like trying to basically not have to work on YouTube while still making money on YouTube. That seems to be the intent here. And that's I think not the right approach.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think there is a spot for this tech. Like, B-roll is a huge industry. People will pay, like, one of the biggest services is like Motion Array, and people will pay $30 a month for licenses to use Motion Array stock footage in their videos. If I just want a video of a bus driving down a road and I want it to be high quality and I want to have guaranteed rights to it that I can distribute it in my content, I have to pay $30 a month for that license. with an AI tool, the AI could just generate it for you. So I think that you will start to see AI generated stuff in film and TV and documentaries and stuff, because it only makes sense that it goes there. I just think like trying to pair this as the replacement for himself in his own YouTube videos is just a weird way of doing it. Whereas if he framed it as, look at this amazing tech and how we can use it to help creators make better stuff, I think that would have been a better way to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And and that's what you hope with people that got FU money. But sadly, I mean, you also have like a lot of behind the scenes videos of him like having people basically do everything to like set up the videos, and his only thing was getting into the studio 2 hours a day. Everything was already set up. He was already in the game with the people he was like doing GTA Online races with, yelling for 2 hours, got out, and that was the only thing he did because the rest was all taken care of by his team. So that was kind of how the oiled machine was already going. So I think he was probably like, okay, so how can I make sure that those 2 hours I don't have to work anymore? Because then I don't have. That's like, I can like go off and do something, lay on the beach.
It is one of the fun things about running a business or operations yourself. Like when Jor and I both started, we both filmed everything ourselves, obviously, and then we also scripted everything ourselves, and we edited it all ourselves. All the thumbnails, everything was us, start to finish. And then as you grow, you can't really keep up on it yourself as you want to expand and do more and more. So you bring in a team of people that are really, really awesome and talented at what they do, and they help you do bigger and better things that you couldn't have done before. Like Jacob edits all of these stream clips. He edits my main channel stuff. I have another streamer, another editor, Trevor, that cuts together all of my TikToks and YouTube shorts and stuff, and he's been fantastic for that. And like all these things couldn't happen if we didn't have our teams behind us, and it becomes this kind of weird video game in itself where you want to like min-max it like a game. You want to figure out, how can I make this run the most efficiently and take advantage of these people's talents and abilities while harnessing my own. And it all just kind of builds into this game where you're trying to find the best way to do things. And in his case, like Jor said, he's just found a way to use AI to basically automate the entire process, which is kind of cool. But anyway, it's been a lovely week. It's been a joyous time. I've appreciated hanging out
next
with all
week,
of you guys.
You will not be here, right? On our usual podcast.
Yeah, next week I will not be here. I will be... What day of the week is next Wednesday? I don't know. The 4th? Yeah, so next week, right around now, I will be driving to Tampa. So I will probably not have the best reception or anything. So we'll figure out schedules. We'll work with that on Joe Raptor. Worst case scenario, you guys will just have an episode with Joe Raptor holding down the fort. Like I did that one time where I just rambled for an hour. And you guys liked it.
Oh, wow.
Right? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Do you have any parting words, any parting wisdom for the audience, Mr. Joe Raptor?
No, thanks for joining and the input in the chat. I read a lot of it, and I saw actually quite a lot of goedenavonds, which like the Dutch word for good evening. So that was cool to see.
How do you say
Dutch
that?
people in goedenavond.
Goedenavond. How do you spell that? Hold on. That sounded like 15 syllables. Like goedenavond. Okay. All of Valhalla podcasts. Yeah.
Albert Heijn. Nice. Oh, why did I like? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Either way, so thanks for that. Yeah, in terms of games, we know the Mirage reviews are dropping on next
4th.
week.
Yeah, I believe the 4th.
So one day before the game comes out. So that's exciting. Hope to get my code soon, because there has been it's a lot of chaos behind the scenes, but we'll be good.
It's Ubisoft. It's always fun.
Yeah, it's always interesting.
Yeah, but we'll be in touch, everybody. Much love.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.